we're going to go over today. We had some submissions from some folks earlier this month and last month about special tools for equations, and we had one member submit a document they would like us to look at and help remediate. So we're going to take a look at that as well. And again, if you have any questions or would like us to workshop any of your own problems during this meeting, I think we're more than happy to take a look at that. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and hopefully everyone can see that. This document was shared by Enid White from Wyoming. I'm sure everyone's familiar with Enid. At this point, she's a wealth of information for Section 508. And this document touches on using Unicode and the numeric keypad for creating more accessible equations. The gist of this was essentially if you're typing in numbers or equations in like alt text, for example, and you use numerical symbols on your keyboard, for example, the dash or minus symbols on your keyboard, the screen reader may have difficulty reading that because it may not be in Unicode format. And so it could read it as a dash, it could read it as a minus. It may get confused on what is actually on the screen that it's supposed to be read as. So a way around that is to input symbols using the numeric keypad on this image shown down here. With your num lock on, you'll be able to enter the symbols here, and there will be no disambiguation about what that symbol represents. If you input a minus, it's going to see it as a minus rather than a dash. Same with a plus or any other symbol that might be confusing for a screen reader. And so there are a number of ways you can do this. You can hold down the Alt key and try to type in a number combination, and that will bring up the Unicode of that equation. But there's a far easier way to do that, and it's a application that's installed on every computer, PC, I believe Mac has it as well, and it is called the Unicode Character Map. So hopefully everyone can see the screen. If you go down to your search bar and just type in character map, it's going to bring up a little app that you can click on. And here's all the symbols for equations that you can input into your Word document. And these are all Unicode format. So again, there's not going to be any confusion about what the symbol means. A screen reader is going to be able to pick this up correctly. Again, though, I want to reiterate that best practice for equations is to input the equation as an image rather than as a typed out equation. That's still the best practice. But when you're inputting things in alt text, this might work for that as well. And there is another application in this document that helps us do that more readily. So let's go ahead and scroll down, and I can send this document out to everyone. You can have a look at it and see if there's anything useful that you might be able to use. But one of the cool things in this one is a program called MathCast, which is an open source equation editor. And what that does, it easily creates equations and you can copy them as an image into your Word document. No more screenshots or opening up the snipping tool or anything like that for your equations. This is all a seamless, unified program that does it all for you. So let me go ahead and show you what this can do. I have it installed on my computer. If you just Google MathCast or follow the link in this document, that will open it right up. So what this does, say we want to make an equation, or heaven forbid, we get a document we need to remediate and the PI, they messed up the equation or we need to fix it, or it's on us to try to address this equation. So, I don't know about you, but I come from a liberal arts background, so I don't know too much about math, but this definitely helps. So what you can do, if you go to File and New, that's going to create a new equation. And then you can go down where it says math in this tab right here, and it's going to have all the different signs and symbols for any math function that you would ever want. So for example, let's just say we want to create an equation, I don't know, let's just say a plus b. you can type the letter A down here, go down to math and do plus, and then B. Okay, there's your equation. And so you're going to do okay. And what this does, okay, let's see. You can copy the equation. We'll hit the copy button. And let's go down to a Word document and let's paste it into the Word document. Whoops. Actually, that's not correct. Let me go back. Let's try this again. Let's see. We'll go to new. All right, let's see. I tried this before and it worked fairly seamlessly. Let me exit out of this program real quick. All right, let's open it up back up again. Okay. The perils of doing live, demonstrations. So let's go ahead and do new. And so let's see. We're going to want to do new equation. Oh, here we go. Add equation. There we go. So let's try A and then plus B and do okay. All right, there we go. So there's the equation as it shows right here. So we can right click, copy the equation, go back to your Word document and paste it in. I'll just do Control V. And there's your equation pasted as an image. So you don't need to snip it. You don't need to do a screenshot. It shows up perfectly as an equation. And so the next step, if you want to add alt text to it, let's go back to our math cast. And let's go ahead and click on this again. We can just copy it from right down here and go down into the image, go to view alt text, and we can paste that into the alt text. So ideally, this is meant to be an all-in-one, equation time saver, essentially. You can create your equations, import them as images into your documents. And again, it should have all of the advanced equations from algebra and basic symbols and roots and all sorts of things like that. So this should have most of the equations that you would be dealing with on a daily basis. So again, I thought this was a fairly helpful tool when it works. I'm not sure why it didn't work that first time. Sometimes, the old computer adage, have you restarted it? That seemed to work. So MathCast, pretty interesting. It seemed an easy way to insert equations without having to go the long way of snipping and screenshots. So does anyone have any questions before we move along? All right, if not, there was one other item we needed to go over before we got into the workshopping of the problem. I remember, I don't know if anybody saw this on TranLib recently, but I think it was Sarah out of Colorado had mentioned that her department had recently indicated that all of their documents that are posted on their website need to be Section 508 compliant. And as some of you may know, I think the federal guidelines was anything after 2018, was it March 2018? That's on a government funded website needs to be Section 508 compliant. Yes, Enid, I see your hand raised.
There is also, for those of you who work with FHWA, there is, well, let me find it here really quick, a Form 4260, which sets out the conformance with Section 508 of the Rehab Act and the Information Communication Technology Final Standard and Guideline. 508 refreshed is a statutory requirement applicable to all ICT that FHWA procures, develops, maintains, and uses. And then the president on September 22nd just sent down an executive order which basically says all public-facing websites and digital services must comply with the federal website standards. In other words, be 508 compliant.
Thank you, Enid. Yes, and as if to drive the point home even more, the rules and regulations are only going to get more enforced as time goes on. And so I think Sarah or Colorado had an interesting point that their agency wanted all Section 508, everything to be Section 508 compliant, regardless of the year. If it is on a website, it needs to be compliant. And so she was asking about older reports, from pre-2018. Some may be from the 1950s or 60s, that, and they would need to go back and remediate. And our state doesn't really have that law in Oklahoma. But on the national level, I guess that's a good question. Does a state can have its own rules dedicated to 508, and they may be more stringent than the federal law. I wonder, does anyone have any laws or regulations that you know about in your own organizations that are different from the federal requirements of things being compliant since 2018? Or do your rules kind of match federal regulations as they currently stand? That's just an open question. If anyone has any comments or observations from that.
I have something to add, Michael, as people think of what's going on in their states. Um, the way, ideally, the National Transportation Library in Rosa P, all of the content would be 508 accessible. But right now we exceed 60,000 documents. A lot of that was digitized before it was common that text would be OCR'd. And so we have actually quite a bit of historical content that is not 508 accessible. So you all know the story that we are a very small staff, and the way that we've decided to deal with this is we monitor what are the most commonly downloaded items from Rosa P. And we did this when we first started with the remediation business in 2018. And that's correct that all federal content since March 2018, publicly facing, has to be 508 accessible. So what we did was we identified the most popular content in the repository going back with no date limits, and we remediated that content that fell into the I don't know what it was. I don't remember. It might have even been the top 100 documents, and we only really found a few that needed remediation. So I do recommend that folks who have limited resources, that's a perfectly acceptable methodology. And we ran that by the USDOT 508 coordinator, and he gave it his blessing because they know that it is really labor intensive to um, uh, remediate all these documents, and we don't have the resources to do that. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw my 2 cents in there. You don't have to be afraid of the older material. You can remediate it through policy and also remediate on demand. That's part of our policy. So if anybody encounters a document that's not accessible, we'll remediate it for them.
Thank you, Mary. That's great information. And I think especially the remediate on demand, that's been a way for us as well to just kind of make sure we keep ourselves covered in that way. We have a disclaimer, we make every effort to make sure it's remediated, but if you find something that isn't accessible or doesn't meet the standards that are needed, let us know and we can do that for you and put it at the top of the queue. So I'm wondering if anyone has any thoughts about this, or if anyone has their own policies that they work with, or if you're in the process of developing policies related to that. And if not, I know a lot of folks are in varying levels of accessibility at their own state agencies. I wanted to share with you something I shared at the last meeting, just a little update for you. And this was out of the pooled fund study that we've been doing. Remind everyone of this page on Section 508 compliance. One of our vendors, CTC and Associates, had put together a compliant research report template previously in the link I shared with everyone last time, it was in PDF format, but this research report template has been updated to include a Microsoft Word format. So again, this is actually a step-by-step guide on how to make something Section 508 compliant. Ideally, you would send this out to your PIs and they would take a look at this and figure out, oh, well, here's how I use a table in a report. Here's how I use a figure or column or equations. It goes through a lot of the main touched on items that the National Transportation Library is going to be looking at when they're reviewing for Section 508 compliance when it's submitted for them. And so our vendor, CTC and Associates, they've had a lot of experience working with this kind of thing, and they know how to make it compliant for all of NTL's checklists. So again, this document has been converted to Word format rather than PDF because PDF actually wasn't that helpful. It's nice to have that Word version where you can actually click in and add things and change things if you need to. So again, this can be sent out to your PIs and used as needed to help them understand what makes a report Section 508 compliant. And on that topic, I wanted to let everybody know that as part of the pooled fund, our vendor is going to be conducting a training on Section 508 compliance, and this is going to be open to a lot of members and PIs, but it's going to be free to attend. So once we get that schedule on the books, I think we can send a link out to anyone who is interested, and they will be going over this research report template as well as other instructions they've prepared, and it should be available and accessible for folks who just want to maybe attend themselves or send their PIs to attend so they can know how to make things Section 508 compliant. So we're targeting a spring date for that 508 webinar by our vendor, and we'll have more information as we go along with that. So before we move on into our document that we wanted to remediate, does anyone have any questions or comments about this?
I actually have one more comment, Michael. A couple of weeks ago, I think it was related to this reason why you brought up this topic of where can I find an accessible TRDP. Rosalind and the Ask a Librarian staff created an FAQ, which actually we did not add the CTC and Associates page to the FAQ, but we'll certainly do that. But the reason why I bring it up is because you can always look in the FAQs for something like that. Rosalind really tries hard to keep that meaningful and current with the kinds of things that folks are asking for. And we can make more FAQs on these type of topics to point people in the right direction. If you think of any of them, any 508 topic that we could help with through an FAQ, you could probably just submit that to the Ask a Librarian help desk. But we're really open to doing that. So that's all.
That's great. Yeah, the resources are out there and they're always being expanded. So I encourage anyone who is new to Section 508 or approaching it for the first time or just trying to make it enlarged or more of a presence in their department or organization, reach out, let us know how we can help. Odds are we know some of the resources to point to. NTL has fantastic libguides on Section 508, and there are tons of resources out there. So I think we want to help demystify this for folks. So if you just have questions or need help knowing where to begin, or maybe more advanced training that's out there, please let us know. And I think we'll be happy to point you in the right direction. All right. Well, speaking of being pointed in the right direction, this next document comes from comes from Michael Nugent from Texas DOT. He had shared this some time ago and wondered if we could take a look at it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And Michael, let me know if this document is the right one or if it seems familiar.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Okay, perfect. All right. I think in your email you sent to me, you had run an accessibility check, and one of the issues was there were the alt text had failed on figures, but no figures were present. Instead, it was a table. And so why was that error coming across? I think hopefully I haven't misconstrued that issue.
No, not at all. When I ran the accessibility check, for some reason, Adobe Acrobat considered what we're viewing right now as a table. And if you go into the tag structure, the figures are somewhat baked within, and it was just bizarre to me to see Adobe make that decision. Because I don't know how Adobe does that. I don't know what types of parameters they use, but it's a figure. And then I have run into this problem several times since I sent this to you with different documents.
Hmm. Yeah, this is obviously not a table. This should be a figure, but let's go and see what's tagged as a figure. It's looking like XX and YY are showing up as figures, but they don't, there's not even a figure tag on them. So why is it doing this? Michael, were you able to find a solution to this, or is it still kind of up in the air?
If I remember this correctly, I don't think this was a Center for Transportation Research document. I think one of the TxDOT project managers, when they approve things for publication, my library will get, we should be getting everything. And I was running a check on this, and then I just informed the specific PI that this type of problem was present within the document. And I feel bad about this because I didn't really explain why this was creating such a problem. I just said figures are missing alt text, and then I moved on to the next one.
Mm, wow. Uh, I wonder, is it something they were doing in Word when they're assembling the report that's causing this? Because it seems to be a repeating issue, right?
It depends. I know that in some instances, I've had Adobe think that a extremely complex graph wasn't a graph, but a collection of pieces. And then I was working on a report recently in which the the researchers painstakingly created these amazing drawings and figures, but their Adobe isn't viewing them as a unified whole. It's just a huge blast of little bitty things, like here's an image of a little car, here's an image of that car merging. And to people who are not visually impaired, it's immediately you can tell it's a figure. But Adobe just, figuratively speaking, throws up its hands.
Hmm. Yeah, honestly, it seems like there's no rhyme or reason why Adobe classifies things the way it does. I don't know. Does anyone have any suggestions for this page on how to remediate it? Like, have you seen this before? What would you try to do? I have an idea. I haven't tried it yet. I'm not sure if it will work, but I want to hear other people, their suggestions. Maybe we can figure this out together.
I can tell you what I've done,
Okay, sure, yeah.
and I have no idea if this is a best practice or if it solves the problem, but I know that I can force it so that Adobe no longer registers it as a mistake. What I'll do is I'll go into the tag structure and find this table, and then open every single tag, every single drop down part of the table, and then manually move all of the myriad pieces up in the tag structure so that the table is more or less empty. And then I can delete the table tag, and I'm left with a bunch of stuff. Now, in the past, I know this has caused problems because there sometimes will be alt text associated with different pieces of this alleged table. And sometimes if I deconstruct the table tag tree, that alt text can get lost. And then I'm always constantly concerned that if I'm reordering tags and deleting things, what's that going to do to my reading order?
Mhm.
Another solution that I have used, and I put quotes around solution, is that I have cleared the page structure and then just drawn a rectangle around the entire thing and labeled it as a figure and gone from there.
I wonder, can we just change it? Have we tried changing it to like, does this mess it up? I know sometimes when you change structures like this, the image goes away or it messes things up. Like, let's see what happens. Oh, it still shows table.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So there's a figure and a table now. Ha. Okay. Yeah, that's what did you wind up doing with these two little guys? Did you delete them or
I don't think this publication has actually made it through remediation yet. This is a university that's not the University of Texas. And when these publications get approved, that's more of a technical approval. And then there's editing and remediation that takes place.
okay.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if the final report's actually seen the light of day yet.
Oh, that's interesting. It's not even
Right,
found in the tags panel, huh?
right. Isn't that great?
Wow. If we try to fix, I I guess we could always try decorative element and see if that does it. Okay. Maybe that got rid of them, but we still have the table. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, wow. Oh, Adobe. Does anyone have any other suggestions that we might
Well,
change?
Cami has a suggestion in the chat, and this is something I have also done in the past. You can find the tag and then just go into its properties and change it to something else.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if we just delete it. I'm gonna try it how you did it last time too. Let's just say figure. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then okay. Yeah,
Yeah, and
that's
I've done that in the past too.
sometimes like I kind of call it going nuclear, like just wiping the whole thing, like you said, like clearing the structure is the best way to go. But then if there are a lot of different elements on the page and you have to retag everything, and for me, sometimes even when you're drawing it around and tagging it, it doesn't always work for some reason. Adobe seems temperamental. Well, yeah, that's uh I don't know. How often do you get documents or items in that condition?
I've been working on, I'm opening a folder real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've been working on 8 newly approved deliverables that are associated with University of Texas researchers. And I would say in practically every single one, I've been having issues with this, especially with respect to if you're looking at a page in which the research team uses as a figure, maybe 6 smaller images as they show the process moving from step 1 to step 6. And to us, it's 3 rows of 2 columns of images, and each one of them has its own sub label, and then the figure as a whole has its own label. And in those cases, almost invariably, Adobe is treating that as a table because it has that regular shape. And then again, what I'll do is I'll go in and deconstruct it, and then I'll make sure that the sub captions go with the appropriate piece of the figure, and then the overall figure has its own caption. It's a remarkable amount of work.
I think people often underestimate how much time it really does take when you think you've fixed one thing and then another thing pops up, and it's insane. I'm telling you, if anyone knows how to do Section 508 compliance, no joke, you could probably make a killing as a consultant on the side. So it is such an in-demand skill to have. So kudos to people who do that regularly. And thank you, Cami, for that suggestion as well, going into the tag and changing it manually. Yeah, I've done that on a few items and it's worked most of the times. Other times, Adobe has its own opinions on if it's going to change. More often than not, the issues I found are the tags don't even show up. Like it's missing content. Like it says it's there in the error message, but then it doesn't show up in the tags, and so it's strange.
Right.
So, does anyone have any other questions about any kind of accessibility issues they've been encountering? Any comments or anything at all? I think this last half of the meeting, anything is fair game for discussion if you would like to bring up any issues or questions that you're currently having.
I have a question about how people approach reading order when going through these multiple hundred pages of PDFs.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Because each time we do an accessibility check, Adobe prompts us to check manually reading order. It's not something that just happens. And I've noticed that when I'm going through a page, Adobe will, every figure on the page will go last. And I'm not certain that's the best way to do it. For example, let's say a researcher on page 6 is talking about figure 1.1, and that's going to show up on page 7. Well, if the screen reader transitions from 6 to 7, in my mind, it makes sense that the figure at the top of the page, figure 1.1, should be the first thing to go. It was described, and then here it is. But Adobe will throw it to the bottom, if as it were. And what I'll do is I'll go in there and I'll try to rearrange the reading order in such a way that makes sense to me. But again, I'm not certain if that's what should be done. There's this idea of, is there a best practice with respect to reading order with these complicated technical reports? And even within that, when you hit an image or a figure that comes with a caption, which of those two things goes first? Should the screen reader give the caption, figure 1.1, picture of a dog, and then hit the alt text of the actual image? I constantly find myself thinking about this as I'm progressing through a document. What makes sense, and am I making things worse?
That's a fantastic question. Has anyone dealt with that? And has anyone come up with any solution to that? Or how do you approach that at your agency? I'll just throw out what we do. And if anyone wants to comment, maybe we're not doing it right on our end, but I agree with you, Michael. I've kind of struggled with that as well. And I've always just gone with the logical flow of the page. So if it is an image and then there's a caption down below, I usually put the reading order as the image and then the caption, just because that's how the eye would naturally glance across it in the reading order. So I see where you're coming from. Like it does make more sense to do the caption first because you're setting up what the image is and then going into that description. So I don't know. Is there a standard? Is there a best practice for this? Does anyone have any thoughts about that?
Well, Michael, I'm trying to think. Most machine readers, they'd like them to read the image or whatever first and then the caption, the title. So am I off the mark? But I think that's the way most screen readers are set up.
I'm with you, Enid. I think we've always done image and then the caption. Like if that's the order that it appears, although alternatively, sometimes we've seen a caption or a title posted above a figure. And in that case, I just always default to what is the natural flow of the page. But if you're saying image then caption, then I don't know, that sounds good to me.
Well, and that's true though. Tables, um, the description, whatever, is always above the table. The description of the figure, the caption, whatever, is below the graphs, the figure. But the screen readers, from what I've researched, they always go to whatever the image is first, and then they know to default to, if it's a table, they look up. If it's a figure, they look down. So I don't know, can you set that in Adobe? I don't know if you can set it to read it like that.
Hmm. I know in Adobe, the only thing you can set is just the order that you want the screen readers to catch it in. So you could set it, I think, whichever direction you want. I wonder, is there an authoritative, like, is there a manual we can consult on this, or is this still just kind of based up to the agency, or?
I'm going to have to go back through my emails. There was something that came out through the Section 508.gov community, and I'm going by just what was in my, the back of my memory. But I know that there was something that screen readers like to touch on an image first, and then whatever, if there's a caption, the title to the figure, the chart, the table, whatever it is, it goes to that next. And I'll have to find that. There's something somewhere, but don't quote me as whether that's a policy or if that was just an email I read. So let me double check.
Thank you, Enid. I
Well,
wonder. Oh, go ahead.
well, with respect to that, when you go into an Adobe PDF and you go to the content panel, you can rearrange things to your heart's delight. And then when I click read order, I can see exactly what goes first and then what goes next. Eden's comment makes me think that there's maybe cross purposes here, where if I'm going through and I am trying to check reading order to make it seem logical to me, if a screen reader doesn't even bother to look at the read order of the Adobe PDF, then maybe don't check reading order? Question mark?
Oh, Does do don't screen readers check the reading order? Like how, or is it dependent on the screen reader program you're using? Otherwise, yeah, why do we do reading order if screen readers wouldn't detect that? Because I don't know about you, but I think I've spent a lot of time rearranging stuff in the reading order panel, but I would think screen readers would detect that, right?
I
Michael, I just found there's a bunch of training out here on PDF accessibility reading order, creating accessible Word documents, tagging panel, reading order for accessibility. Yeah, reading order, there's a lot. I mean, it's a high priority. It allows text to speech or screen reading software to read information sequentially.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, it sounds like that is necessary then if the software is detecting it. Is
yeah,
that a link? Is that a link we could post, or is there a website?
um, yeah, if you go to, I'll throw it out in the chat. Here, just a second. Oh shoot, I hit the wrong thing. My fingers aren't working today. The W3C PDF 3, ensuring correct tab and reading order in PDF documents. I'm going to throw this in the chat. But it says, see understanding techniques for success, for important information, blah, blah, blah. Success criteria. And then it goes through how to meet meaningful sequences, how to use the keyboard. There's a focus order. Users can navigate through content in a logical order that is consistent with the meaning of the content. Correct tab and reading order is typically accomplished using a tool for authoring PDF. For sighted users, the logical order of PDF content is also the visual order for screen readers. For keyboard and assisted technology users, the tab order through content, including interactive elements, determines the order in which these users navigate the content. Logical structure. It says if reading order is not correct, keyboard and assisted technology users may not be able to understand the content of the document. Correct way to ensure correct reading order is to structure the document correctly and an authoring tool used to create the document before conversion or tagging to PDF. Well, that doesn't help. When the PDF document contains form fields, use a correct reading tool. Yeah, it shows a lot about reading order through a Word document, and then it goes through setting the tab order for one or more pages using Adobe Acrobat 9 Pro. So I just sent that link. But yeah, I just Googled reading order for 508 compliant docs. And there's 4 videos, maybe more. 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, there's a ton of videos. And they're not just whack job videos. Section 508.gov has using built-in features to organize content. That's for PDFs. Section 508.gov, converting scanned documents to Section 508 using reading order. So there's a lot out there, yeah. And reading order is a must. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely. Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
Oh, no,
thank you, Enid. That's a lot to go over. I think we'll have some fun going over that and seeing, if it mentions anything about like figures and captions and things like that. But a lot of good information there. I wonder, does anyone at anyone's agency have like a liaison to anyone like for any groups like the League of the Blind or anything like that? Like, I wonder if it would be helpful if we ask someone within the community to see if there are guidelines or preferences for that sort of thing, or if that might be helpful. Because I think it's one thing to do things but to do things in a vacuum when we don't even have a response from the community that we say we're supposed to be helping and advocating for, that might be one missing piece that we would need to consult. And maybe it would be a good idea to have a guest speaker come on either next time or in the future, someone from within the community who can say, what works, what doesn't, what we should be looking out for. Maybe that might be something worthwhile to pursue.
Michael, we got a new 508 coordinator at DOT recently. I had a working relationship with the former coordinator, Larry Slaughter, who retired. And I have not met the new person. I don't know if this is something that office would do, but I can certainly ask. And maybe this is a way for me to introduce myself to the new person. Because I did a lot for Larry Slaughter, actually. Me and I don't know if you've met. Has Michelle Krebs come to any of our meetings and talked about the FHWA accessibility training. I think she did quite a while ago. But the two of us have done programming for the 508 coordinator, but just not recently. I don't know where this is going to go, but I'll reach out and see if I can get somebody. But
Thank you.
others should try too, because I really don't know what the, story is.
Thank you, Mary. That'd be great. Yeah, it'd be excellent if we could put together like a speaker series of, folks in the industry, folks who are impacted by this, and talk about, their experiences, their knowledge with working with this kind of stuff. I think that would be very helpful.
I can tell you that many of you might remember that we had a legally blind summer intern in 2022. And that experience was really very enlightening for me because there were things that I didn't know about how people who are vision impaired actually use these tools. And as Jacob would tell us, that not every person who's legally blind is totally blind. Most have some sight. So they use a lot of magnifying text as well as screen readers to go through the documents. I've been involved for about the past year now with people in the accessibility community on the social media platform Mastodon. And I can tell you that the alt text, and I know we keep coming back to this, the alt text is really, really, really important for lots of people, and not just people who have are legally blind. A lot of that comes back to that. Um, so the other thing is, I've had Craig, what's his last name, from the U.S. Access Board. He did, as you recall, last summer, we did a series on equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. And he did a workshop with us too, Craig. Craig, I'll remember his name as soon as I stop talking. But many of you probably remember him. He's deaf, and he would speak to us, on the topic of 508 accessibility for people who, for all kinds of people. We could certainly plan something, and I think probably Rosalind's in the room with us right now. She might even give us a platform with the TLR if we wanted to do something with that, which might be,
Yeah.
There's so much interest in this, Michael, that I think if we could get a speaker or two or three for a TLR, that might be really a really good thing. And we could be like the co-hosts of it or something.
Yeah, co-presenters.
I like that. That's an excellent idea. I like it.
Mary,
Yeah.
is this the same Craig who did a massive presentation at annual meeting 2020?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he was really impressive. He's a super nice guy, and he loves interacting with us. He told me anytime I send an invitation to him, he's happy to speak to us. What you realize that one of the things that the U.S. Access Board is heavily involved in is transportation, because that is for many, many disabled people, that is the only transportation that they have, is public transportation. So we're kind of heroes in this whole scenario, because we're transportation and we're trying to remediate documents. So I just throw that out there. But every time I talk to Craig, he always mentions that, and has lots of good examples about how when you make your technology, your infrastructure, whatever, accessible, for disabled people, you make it accessible for everyone and in ways that you can't even imagine. So, all right. So I'm making notes to myself to follow up. So, Michael, you and I might want to talk, and Rosalind, the three of us might want to get together through email, to do
Sure.
this.
Yep, I like that. Good idea.
You know, I may be misremembering, but I think Craig has done a TLR with us.
He did. He did another. He did he was one of a panel of speakers
Right,
at
that's
a
right.
TLR last summer.
Well, I think it'd be good to reach out and get a diversity of perspectives on this. So yeah, I think that's fantastic, and you can definitely touch base by email about this. Well, Robin Russell posted in the chat. Can you send Craig's contact information? Still trying to convince our folks that compliance is a requirement. Looking to have someone to present at our next TRC conference. And Enid White posts, do not use artificial
ready?
intelligence to insert alt text.
Okay, I'm gonna be.
Oh, looks like someone has their mic unmuted. All right, well, we just have a few minutes left. Does anyone have any questions or comments about any of this before we move on? If not, I would say this has been a really productive discussion. I think we've been able to review some cool applications and technology, workshops and problems, and figure out what we might be doing going forward. I'm looking at the calendar of events. I believe our next meeting for this community of practice is going to be in December. Mary, do we have a date fixed for that, or is that up in the air?
I believe that I have a date on the calendar, and I'll check on that right now while you keep talking.
No worries. Yeah. So yeah, as usual, if you have any topics or any problems you would like to bring to this group, if you want to see us workshopping something or a sticky issue that you've come across, just let us know. You can let us know in the chat, send us an email. I'm going to put my email in the chat right now if you would like to send me something offline for topics or problems or questions. And because most of this is community driven, so if you have anything you would like us to review, I think we would be all ears and all eyes and be happy to take a look at that for you.
So I didn't schedule the next meeting, but it will likely fall on Tuesday, the 12th of December, and I'll put that on my calendar now, and then Rosalind will transfer it to the NTKN calendar. So just stay tuned. You'll get that in a couple of minutes, Michael and Rosalind. Thanks. Thanks for the reminder.
Thank you, Mary. Awesome. All right. And as always, these meetings are recorded and they're posted on the NTKN website and also to the NTKN YouTube channel. So stay tuned for recording for that. If you'd like to share this with anyone that may have missed this and has content you think they'd be interested in seeing. Until next time, which looks like December 12th, I hope everyone has a safe and happy Thanksgiving holiday and look forward to seeing everybody in December. So thanks again, everyone. Thank you, Penny. Thank you, Chin. Thank you, Cami. Awesome. Have a good rest of the week. Thank you, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.